Hi Freelancer, welcome to today's episode of the Freelance Blueprint. I'm your host Leslie, a freelance UX designer and digital nomad, and today we're joined by Ben. Ben used to be a freelancer in the sound industry, and when he got too frustrated by all the different tools he needed to run his business, he decided to launch one platform to get rid of all the other platforms, and Scope Freelancer was born. In this episode, we're talking about how he struggled as a freelancer until he figured out the business side of things, and we also talk about the one thing he would have done differently and what it's like to launch your own Saas product. Hi Ben, thanks for joining the call today.
Thank you for having me.
Where are you currently calling from?
I'm in Hamburg, Germany.
And what brought you to Germany? Because you're not originally from there, right?
No, I'm American. I grew up in Virginia near Washington, D.C. And, it's a tale as old as time. An American guy leaves the United States after college. He goes to South Korea for a couple years. And he meets a German woman there who drags him back to Germany with you. I'm sure you've heard it a million times, just so old and stereotypical, but that's what happened to me and many other Americans here in Germany. And so I ended up here about 10 years ago, thinking kind of like my couple of years in Asia that I would just hang out for a little while here and then bounce around somewhere else. And I'm still here. So that's the way the cookie crumbled for me.
Nice. If I didn't know anything about you, but would meet that specific German person that dragged you all the way to Germany, how would they describe you to me?
Oh, I don't know. That would be now my ex-girlfriend. So I don't know how nice of things she would have to say about me. So let's say I got dragged to Germany. I realized that the person that brought me to Germany was not right for me, but Germany was right for me. So I got rid of her, but I stayed here.
Well, sometimes you meet people for a reason. Okay, let's ask the question differently then. How would your best friend describe you to me?
Oh, gosh, that's an interesting question. Well, I'm sure they'd have nothing but kind words to say. They might describe me as a very purposeful person. I think hardworking, bordering on workaholic, perhaps. I think for people who know me well, they know that I have pretty clear goals in life that I like to work hard towards achieving. And I'm also very, I would say very dedicated to my family and my close friends. So I'm currently looking forward to the birth of our first child. So it's an extremely exciting time in my life right now. I'm basically just got a big grin on my face all day, every day. So I'm super happy, and hopefully other people can see that as well.
Congratulations. That's quite like, I don't have children myself, but everyone told me that things, life, perspective, everything changes. So I hope it's going to be an exciting journey for you.
I have no doubt it will be.
So you said that your friend would describe you as having clear goals. What are your goals at the moment?
Oh gosh, many of them actually. It's with the baby on the way. It is a time of change. So a lot of things are changing, obviously, in our personal lives. But I suppose professionally, I'm working very hard on establishing the product and business that I'm sure we'll talk about soon here, a Scope Freelancer, which is essentially become the main career goal in my life, is to help freelancers like I used to be for a long time, maybe around 15 years of freelancing under my belt, to help them get the access to the kind of tools that I wish I had back when I was struggling and juggling my way through multiple software subscriptions, trying to get my business off the ground and make things work, and see the kind of success with my freelancing journey that was obviously very, very difficult to find. So that's one of my main things right now. And then, otherwise, lots of other stuff. I have a lot of plans. I'm a kind of a person who I live off of the future goals in a way. I know that can be perceived sometimes as a negative if you're not, present and in the here and now kind of thing. But if I don't have like that big lofty dream out in front of me, then I just kind of like crumble. I need something huge, something really massive to just like, I don't know, make me want to spring out of bed every morning, rush under a cold shower and just start yelling and screaming and attacking the day like a madman.
I think it's very tricky to balance to balance staying in the present, but also having goals and thinking about the future. Because if we would just stay in the present, what's the point in saving money? We would all get a flight, stay by the beach, stay in a 5-star luxury resort, but we can't live every day as if it's our last, because maybe there is a tomorrow and maybe we need money tomorrow. Maybe we need to do something else tomorrow. So I think it's very tricky to get that balance between balance and future. How do you deal with that?
Oh, let's say, do I deal with it at all? I suppose both are important. I think. I mean, maybe that's my perspective. With someone with my personality might say something like that, but I enjoy the present more, knowing that the things that I'm doing in the present are, again, putting me on a path towards greater things in the future. Not to say that I don't think my life is nice as it is now. I'm very happy where I am. I'm very appreciative of the many great things that have happened to me, being able to travel the world, live in different countries, build a business, and all the opportunities that I've been lucky enough to have. So I don't discount those or say it's not good enough yet. So I don't personally struggle, I think, with that issue. I guess maybe it depends a bit on you and the way you see the world. But I think me personally, I can think back to times in my life where I didn't have those kind of lofty shoot for the stars types of goals and plans. And I found my life lacking. And so I found myself being less able to enjoy the present because I just looked into the future and there was just a big hazy cloud of what the hell is coming my way that maybe just made me, I don't know, I wouldn't say worry or make me anxious, but it didn't excite me. It didn't arouse some kind of passion or anything positive in my life. So I'd rather just go all out and suffer the consequences.
What was the changing point where you went from not really having those defined goals and realizing you don't really not hate, but also not really like the present in that sense, to defining that you want to have those bigger goals to also make your present more enjoyable?
There was a time not too long ago where I switched really for the first time in my life from freelancing to a full-time position at a really cool agency that as a freelancer I'd always dreamed of having like as a client. And I found out they had this full-time offer. And, in my mind, I thought, oh, this is exactly like this. I'd never had a job before, not a real one, and certainly not a full-time job, maybe a couple of part-time things here and there when I was younger. But it's like, wow, a full-time job that pays well at this agent. They're doing super cool stuff. Exactly. Like I thought it was the dream job. I thought, this is it. This is like exactly the type of thing that I've been looking for. But it ended up just being absolutely the opposite for me. Not that the job itself wasn't interesting, the people were great and the projects were interesting, but that just must have been the way I was born. As soon as that kind of the agency was taken away by the fact of being a full-time employee who, of course gets to voice their opinions and try to move their position and their work in a way that fits them. But at the end of the day, what the boss and the head of the company are saying is what you do. When I lost that, even though I thought I was getting so much value in return, stable income, good pay, job security, all of this other stuff. But when I lost that agency and that feeling of, like, okay, maybe I'm like in scrappy freelancer, small business mode, and it's not always going the way I want. It's stressing me out and pulling out my hair. But at the same time, like I can do anything. I can build towards anything. I can set any goal for myself that I want. And when I lost that, I just had this feeling. It's like something is really, really missing for me. And again, I think that's just how I am. I don't know if I can or would change it. And so that's ended up being the reason that I had to give up that perfect dream job and do something else, because I just, when I look towards the future, I thought, okay, yeah, this job is nice. I guess, I'll get like an X% raise every year. And maybe one day if the company grows, I might be a team lead or something like this. But none of it was like life-changing, amazing, epic stuff. So I'd rather go for epic and fail than be happy or rather be, let's see, happy is not the right word, but just be at a place where things won't change they won't get worse, but they also won't get way, way better either. Mm-hmm. So I think that's just how the good Lord made me, so to speak.
I also wonder if it's because you said that you've never really had that full-time experience. And once you've had that freedom of defining how your day-to-day looks like, it's very, very difficult to go back to, like you mentioned, not having that agency to decide certain things for yourself, doing it based on what other people tell you to do. But there are a few things that I find interesting. One of them is, because you mentioned your goals, how you set your goals, how do you keep on track with those? And the other thing, we talked about the present and the future, but we didn't talk that much about your past. So I would like to know, what did you do as a freelancer, how you got into that, and how come you never had a proper full-time job before, that potential dream full-time gig?
Yeah, I might have just been unemployable. I freelanced in the audio industry, and I think pretty honestly say there's almost no audio related job that I did not do at some point in my freelancing journey. So I studied music composition in Boston before leaving the US. And so I've composed music. I've done sound design for film and video games. I've done live sound mixing, like concerts and stage plays, and done podcast recordings, and done just the full gambit. There's almost nothing in the audio world that my hands did not touch at one point or another. So that's my background, was always audio. And as a freelancer, I was on one hand free to do whatever I wanted. I was also free to fail miserably for a long, long time, because I knew how microphones worked and how to compose music. I had no idea for the longest time how to sell my services, how to run a business, how to acquire clients. It was just totally and utterly lacking in so many areas that I'm surprised I didn't end up on the streets begging for spare change. It was pretty bad. It was pretty depressing. I worked with video games for a long time. I tried to start a studio with a friend of mine, focusing mostly on interactive audio for games and for like virtual reality and cool new technology. Unfortunately, we decided to start that project right before the pandemic hit, and that kind of crushed our dreams in a quick and pretty impactful way, as it did, I'm sure, many other people's plans. So after that, I was kind of scrambling, as I think many people were, and just luckily found this job that I just mentioned, which at the time was definitely a godsend. I mean, because it was hard times for everybody in the industry, and to go from losing basically the entirety of your business in a 2-week span, and spending lockdown trying to figure out how the hell you're going to get it back and pay the bills, to having, a full-time income and being able to make it through. So I'm definitely grateful for that opportunity.
Yeah. How did you learn all of these admin things? Because I keep telling to people who ask me about freelancing and stuff, that it's not just a skill set that you have. You don't just show that, I don't know, in your case, some audio skills, for me, like UX design skills. It's everything around it. You have to market yourself. You have to do sales. You have to do branding. You have to do so many things that you don't consider. All the workflows, all the kind of management. How did you learn those things?
Well, the The short answer is I didn't for a long, long time. And the results spoke to that effect. Many things I just learned purely by making painful and miserable mistakes over and over and over until I realized maybe I'm doing something wrong. At some point, I decided to realize, this whole business part of my business, I suck at that. Maybe there's some skills or some information that I'm lacking that I might want to invest in. And so I actually just took a course that was offered by actually another now podcaster in the freelancing space, although he started in the audio space, Brian Hood. I don't know if you know him or his podcast. I think it's called Six Figure Creative now.
I think I heard the title. I definitely have to check it out.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy. And for a long time before he branched out to just freelancers in general, he was focused on the audio niche because he used to run a studio and produce, I think he produced like metal or something. He recorded and produced metal bands, and then branched out into making courses for audio people running a business. So it was, he nailed the niche in terms of, audio person looking to figure out how to run a business better. So I took one of his courses and, had a lot of eye-opening moments in terms of like, customer acquisition. Sales and marketing. Brand concepts. It's like, my website isn't all about me. It's about my customers. Like so many things were just like aha moments that wish I had a decade earlier, but better late than never.
I think nowadays, especially, it's good that there's more and more of this content out there. So many people produce content like that. And it's easier to Google things now. Also, you can just ask ChatGPT. There are so many things that make your life easier than if you would have started 10 years ago. From then, did you see a change?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, number one, I just felt way better because I had finally a feeling like, I at least a little bit know what I'm doing now. Or I have, again, a plan that is putting me on a path towards the kind of future that I'm, dreaming about and setting as a goal for myself. Before, I definitely had the goal and the dream, but I had no plan. And so I think the skills, the mindset, and just, having the feeling, even if there's still much more to learn, that you have some kind of foundation that you can build off of that isn't totally garbage, and you have some idea of what you're doing and know where you're starting and know where you need to be going and have an idea of what it's going to look like along the way.
I'm pretty sure as well that after that course, you had a massive to-do list of things that you needed to tackle and go through. And most of those were based on the goals where you wanted to put your business. How did you prioritize those? How did you tackle all of these tasks to suddenly implement client acquisition, marketing, sales, all the things you mentioned? What's your approach when you set goals, when you tackle them, and do you track them?
Great questions. So for me, this is not how I always did it. Again, more learning along the way after, mistakes and many problems that arise from them. When it comes to goal setting, I realized at some point that it worked better for me and was just maybe perhaps a bit wiser, not only for my business, but also for my mental health, to set intrinsic goals rather than extrinsic goals. And what I mean by that is like, if you're freelancing, you want to grow your business. So you set a goal to get 2 new customers every month. And that's a great goal to have. If you do that over the entire year, assuming, let's say you work in an area where customers are rather on the larger side. It's not like one-off $50 projects, but bigger projects that keep you busy for a while, then getting 24 new customers every year, and hopefully some percentage of them are going to turn into repeat customers. That's a great thing. But what makes it extrinsic rather than intrinsic is that you can try to get 2 new customers, but you don't actually control really 100% whether that outcome really is going to happen at the end of the day. Intrinsic goal would be to flip it and say, well, what do I need to do to move towards the extrinsic goal of getting 2 new customers? And maybe that would be I need to post my blog articles regularly and share them on LinkedIn, or I need to visit X number of networking events every month in my city. And I can control that. I can definitely say I have full control and full agency over whether I post a blog article every week or whether I actually go to those networking events. And those are things that will move me towards the goalpost of more customers. And I don't have to necessarily discount the idea that I would like to have X number of new customers every month. But again, I can't control for that. And it might be that I get 0 customers one month and 5 the next month. And I technically, on average, overshot my goal. But what I can do is I can put a system in place where I consistently do the types of things that get me closer to that goal and that I am completely in charge of. And I will know at the end of the month, did I meet that goal or did I not meet that goal? If I didn't, that was on me because it was only a goal that was totally within my control. So what happened? How do I maybe improve my system, or was it not a good goal in the first place? I can reflect on all of those things. But when it comes to actually influencing the behavior of other people, turning them into customers, you can work towards that, but you can't control it 100%. So in my case, it would drive me a little crazy to set goals like that and then not hit them. And then you're thinking the whole time, oh, I did talk to that one potential lead, but why didn't they want to buy, or blah, blah, blah. And it might have just been that they just don't need the service yet, maybe in 2 months from now, or just things, again, that are completely outside of your scope that you can't really influence. And so that helped me stay sane a little bit when I realized this intrinsic versus extrinsic narrative that I could kind of play it against itself.
I also think it's quite good that you set goals. For me, I break it down into tasks, and then it just seems like this huge thing that I need to work on. And I know why I do things, but sometimes I need to remind myself why this task is or isn't important, why I should not procrastinate on it. I mean, the landscape has changed. You mentioned that you've been freelancing for 15 years, but do you remember how you got that first freelance gig? Especially because you mentioned the sale, client acquisition, etc. stuff was a bit tricky, or you didn't know much about it back then. So how did you get that first client?
Gosh, if I remember right, my first client was actually just a friend who knew from being my friend that I offered the type of services that they would be interested in. And since they were already a good personal friend, they felt totally fine employing me to do that job for them. So there was definitely I wasn't out cold acquiring clients and convincing them of my awesomeness. That was a good friend of mine, a singer. So the job was that I produced her first singer-songwriter album in my bedroom. So this was like real low budget back in the day, just getting started type of thing. And she paid me, some measly amount of money that in retrospect was definitely not enough, but it was a job. I had something to do. Someone was paying me some amount of money for the skills that I had acquired in my bachelor's program at university. So I was happy enough, and probably spent, I think my hourly wage probably came out to nearly 0 because I spent so much time trying to do a good job on her album and, overproduce it like crazy and just to do the best work that I could possibly deliver at that time, which looking back was terrible work because I was just starting. I had no idea what I was doing, but got to deal with where you're at, not where you will want to be one day.
Yeah, that's a good tip. Always start with whatever you have, because if you wait to know everything, you're never going to start because there's just too much to learn. If you would have to do everything again, would you do it? And how would you do it starting today?
Gosh, I'm so grateful for where I am right now and so happy where I am that I would probably just say, I'll just take life as it came. Thank you very much, in order to be where I am right now. I think that's not really necessarily a business statement. But if I hadn't done the odd things that I did, like, fly over to Asia for a couple of years and then randomly follow some German woman over to Germany, I would not have ended up where I am right now, I wouldn't have met my wife, and my life would probably look very, very different. Hopefully, it would nonetheless be a quite pleasant one. But no, I wouldn't change a thing. I might not if I knew I could change one thing, and that it would not affect my overall future too badly. I probably would not have gone to university in the United States. That was, I think, is an increasingly poor choice to make, because I, like many Americans, I was just like, oh, university is important and it's expensive for everyone. So it's totally normal for me to take on a huge debt and basically dig myself an enormous financial hole that I'm way too young to even understand and realize is going to be outrageously difficult and painful to get myself out of. But I'm going to university, so it's totally fine. That was one that stings. That's one of those, like, wake up in the middle of the night and have an existential moment, like, why did I do that type of choices. But at the end of the day, it got me to where I am. All's well that ends well. But it's not something I would personally recommend to anyone else. I think there's no reason to have that amount of debt as a young person who's then going off to potentially, especially back then, I studied music composition. So I was going into an industry that already has a pretty wild fail rate. So I was optimistic. You might be able to tell I'm an optimistic person at heart, but that's gotten me into trouble a few times in my life.
I actually had a conversation with a previous podcast guest just the other day that I'm also very idealistic on certain things, but also I feel like we should be, because if nobody's idealistic, everyone just expects the worst from everyone else, and that whatever we're doing is never going to get us to where we want to be. So I actually think it's a good trait, because it motivates you to do better things, and you also start to see a more positive outlook on things, even if they might be a bit more gray, like studying music at university. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. I actually also had that conversation with other podcast guests, because there is so much content out there, so many courses, where the question is it even worth it going to university? Because by the time you finish studying, there's so much new stuff out there and it's no longer up to date. What would you have done differently, looking back at it, instead of going to university to acquire the same knowledge?
I mean, that's hard to say, because in 2007, when I started university, these options weren't really available. There weren't crazy amounts of YouTube videos and cheap, affordable online courses to teach you what you might want to know. So back then, I might have just opted to go to like a community college instead of move out of state, which is very pricey in the United States, and go to Boston, which is one of the biggest university cities in the world, which also means that they really squeeze you there because they know everyone wants to be there. So I probably would have just studied the same thing somewhere else. In hindsight, I mean, music theory is music theory. It's not any different at one university or the other. C major chord is still a C major chord, no matter where you learn it. And otherwise, if I were doing it today, then I would say I would personally look for like a mentor or a good teacher, and try to get myself in a situation where I can have them help me figure out how to learn the things I want to learn. Again, maybe without necessarily doing 4 years at a college somewhere. I mean, it's a different thing saying that being here in Germany, because in Germany, university is essentially free. And I took advantage of that. I went to and got a master's degree while I was here, because when I first got here, I had come here, but I didn't know anyone. I didn't have any contacts. I had no network. And so I kind of thought, okay, well, where am I going to meet people? Where am I going to learn German? And I realized, like, oh, I could go do like a 3-4 semester master's degree, pay nothing for it, learn some new skills, because at that point I'd had enough experience doing the kind of work I'd been doing up until that point to see where I was lacking. So that I could find a master's program, go study the things that I realize are my weaker points, meet some new people, build a network, learn German a bit better, and get a master's degree and come out of that hopefully in a better situation, and also without accruing any new debt or anything. So in Germany, it's a totally different situation to go and study for a couple of years here than it is in the United States or elsewhere. So, but I think either way, whether you're in university or not, going that path or not, I think trying to find a good mentor is a great idea. Just someone who's like really personally there for you. And sometimes that can be a teacher or even an older student who's further along in the program, but just someone who's kind of been there, done that in the industry you want to be in, and can, guide you and point you in the right direction, and hopefully be there as someone to bounce ideas off of and learn the ropes from. I think that's something pretty valuable. And you might learn, the basics in university, but if you're not lucky, you might not have that type of person in your life who is really like, okay, you've learned the basics now, and if you want to turn this into a viable career, or if you want your life to go in this direction or this other direction, I'm here to be the person who tells you like what's what in that respect, and not just present chapter 3 to you and with the whiteboard behind me and grade your papers at the end of the day.
Do you have a mentor now?
I do not. I am actually on the lookout for someone to become a mentor, to someone to work with. That's actually one of my goals, is to kind of sneak myself maybe into a mastermind group or something somewhere. That's on my to-do list.
I'm pretty sure you're going to get there with your goals system. So last time we talked outside of this recorded conversation, we were talking about the whole admin side of things, or freelancing. And I think for a lot of freelancers, it ruins their experience quite a bit, because they think that I'm going to spend all my life, I don't know, let's say they're an illustrator, drawing, or I'm going to spend my career doing X, Y, and Z, when a lot of the time is actually taken by all the admin side of things, getting to know and learn all of those things. And you created a solution for this. So you worked on Scope Freelancer. What was it for you that made you decide, okay, there is nothing out there that solves all of these problems. I need to find something else. I need to do something myself. When was that moment when you said, it's not just an idea anymore, it's something that I'm actually going to do?
I'm the kind of person who really likes to scratch their own itch. And that's been something that I've done several times in my career. So Full Scope is not my first startup. I already had a software idea before I was in actually a program that was coaching and mentoring me to help get it off the ground. That was also right around the time of COVID. It got just
lucky.
Yeah, that fell down in flames. But I had an idea for another separate piece of software to scratch my own itch and kind of solve problems in my life. And I thought, what, if I don't do it, maybe someone else will, maybe they won't, but I'm interested. I have this problem. I would like to see it solved. I have an idea about how to solve it. Let me just go talk to people and see if there's any way that I could get started with this, and why not? And I think at some point, some people in their careers, they just like start off right away with the thing that they know they want to do just for the rest of their lives. And they're just going to, whether it's being a software developer or, I don't know, a financial consultant, whatever it might be, they're just like all in from day one until they retire. And that's not my personality. So even though I did audio work for a long time and I loved it, I really enjoy composing music. I still play guitar regularly and like to perform. But at some point it's just like, this is not what I necessarily need to do career-wise for the rest of my life. I've done this for a long time. I've seen a lot of ups and downs. It's definitely been interesting, but I would like to at least try something else. And maybe it ends up being totally awful and not for me. And I can just go back to audio because I have many years of experience and I'm not going to forget how to do it. So I had this first idea for software. I went and pitched it and went in this program and actually won the first prize for the idea and won this pitch contest. And then again, just like the world went crazy for a couple of years with the COVID lockdowns and everything that happened with that. And then later, I had this other idea for full scope, and then essentially the opportunity to pursue it kind of presented itself to me in a way where I thought, okay, here's another itch that, if I don't scratch it, maybe no one will. Maybe it'll never get scratched, but I feel like scratching it. And so it was something that I mentioned. I was working at this full-time job and just kind of realizing it wasn't like really the right thing for me. So I started full scope on the side, as many projects often get started as just like a hobby side thing that you're doing because you're maybe not feeling completely fulfilled or challenged at your workplace. And then I just decided, all right, now this is it. I'm going for it. Let's spin this off into a thing. And that's kind of how I got off the ground.
How has it been going so far? Like, what are the big learnings, big challenges, and what is it like? Because with building a Saas project, you come from an audio background, but you will have to learn how to code, how to design those things, creating the use. Like, there's a lot of UX involved in that. There's a lot of marketing involved, a lot of networking to find the right people. How did you tackle that project?
Okay, well, number one, I didn't code anything. Well, I'll just get that off my chest here. So other people way smarter than me did a lot of the grunt work. I'm definitely an ideas kind of guy. I'm very pragmatic. I've funnily enough, I noticed, and I've even heard from people in Germany that at least in their opinion, this is like an American thing. So maybe it's just, that red, white, and blue blood flowing through my veins. But when I like see something I want to do, I'm just kind of the person who just like jumps right into it and then figures out all the planning that I should have done before I jumped as I'm going. And other people may think that unwise. They're like, no, you need to like do some proper planning and think things out. And then you don't jump, you take one step and then another step. Like, nope, I'm jumping right into the deep end. And
did you hit a rock?
So it's been, oh gosh. I'll choose not to answer that one. I'll call it pebbles. They were just pebbles. Just tiny little hurdles on my way to massive success, I'm sure. But yeah, there's definitely, as with all things, lots of learning. So luckily, through the things that had happened to me, since I had been a freelancer, since I'd been completely in charge of running my own business, getting my own clients, selling my own products and services, I at least had an idea of how to present a product, how to find the people who would want to buy the product. And so, of course, some of the back end stuff around, managing the people who are actually making sure the product works and exists in the first place has been a totally different type of task. But it's gone pretty well so far. And the feedback I've gotten has been pretty good so far. So I'll take that as a good sign that I haven't totally screwed it up.
How do you find people that, like you said, I think it's a good way to do that, where you hire people that know something better than you, because if you would have to teach yourself how to code things, of course, it's not going to be as efficient and as fast to create that type of software. So how do you learn enough about, let's say, software development to know which people to hire for it, or to build a team, even if the expertise that you're outsourcing isn't necessarily something that you know a lot about?
That's a really good question. And I'm not even sure I have a great answer. I mean, at some point, you just kind of have to assume that people who present themselves well and have good reviews and seem to know what they're doing do, and start working with them and learn from any mistakes that may or may not come from not being in a position to vet people 100% correctly. That's just something I think you have to have a good feel for people. And luckily, because most everyone's businesses are online these days. If someone has 200 plus happy customers and they all gave them reviews, and you can see that, I don't know, on their Fiverr page or on Google or wherever they present themselves, and you can look for the signs that they're not a scam artist, dum-dum who actually doesn't know what they're doing or is just trying to steal your money kind of thing. I don't have actually any really particularly genius tips in that area. I just try to get a feel for people and then use the other cues such as reviews and testimonials, and just how, have they gone through and presented themselves in a way that I think makes them appear to be someone who's professional and knows what they're doing.
I had a browse through Full Scope Freelancer, and there were so many things where I didn't even know they existed until you guided me through it. And for someone who is quite overwhelmed with all the software out there, let's say they have one tool for invoicing, one tool for managing the clients, one tool for all the other admin stuff, like a list of leads or sending a newsletter, all these kind of things. And I know that Full Scope is covering those. How do you manage to put all the different softwares that are kind of out there into one without overwhelming the user? In a way, it simplifies things because things are linked, but at the same time, it is still a lot to digest. So what's your approach with that platform?
Communication. You just have to really be good at communicating and boiling it down to the basic idea of what problem it solves and why it's valuable to the customers. Sure, we have a website and a features page that lists all the different things that the software does, but at the end of the day, most of our customers, they don't necessarily find the website or purchase the product because they want to have a Swiss Army knife tool that does 15 different things and they need all of them 100%. It's more just like they're frustrated with having to juggle like all this different software to manage their business, especially as a solo, just like a self-employed freelancer who maybe doesn't have any help in the back end. At best they might have a VA or something, but most people, they're on their own. They're doing it all themselves. And again, it's just that scratch your own itch thing that I mentioned. I used to be in that chair, sitting there. I had, my website was on Wix. I did emails with MailChimp. I used Calendly to schedule calls and appointments. I had Pipedrive for my CRM, and then I had to pay extra for Zapier because they're all separate tools and I wanted them to talk to each other. And so I'm just like, oh, geez, look how much money I'm spending. Look how much time I'm losing. And every time I wanted, I could see the value in having other tools in my business. But at the same time, I was looking at like, oh, that's more money I have to spend. It's another whole piece of software I have to learn how to use. So, it's another thing I have to figure out how to connect it to Zapier so that I can try to make my website and my CRM talk to each other or something like this. And it just it did not excite or inspire me to build a better system for my business because of the costs and because of the work involved and the time lost. And so I knew that, at least for one person in the world, myself, that the value proposition of having a tool that had everything that I needed and more all in one place. I just open up one tab in my browser and it's all right there. And not only being able to solve the issue of juggling all of this software, paying all of these subscriptions, but also being way more flexible, because I think a lot of freelancers, especially when you're just getting started, you don't have 5, 6, 7 pieces of software. You probably haven't learned enough about running a business to even know what to do with all of them. But as time goes on, as you get more serious, as your business grows, you realize, okay, I need more and more of this to run a viable online business. And especially at the beginning, you might not know yet really what works for your business and for your customers. So it could be that you sign up, for example, for like MailChimp and pay $20-$30 a month for 6, 9, 12 months to try to start a newsletter, only to realize that, my customers don't really seem to be reacting to a newsletter, or it's not quite working for the way I do business. Like, I'm not the type of person who writes a newsletter at the end of the day. And then you've sunk all that time and money to something that ended up really not being the right fit for you. Now, that's good because you've learned, you have to try it in order to figure it out. But I think that if you have a tool that already has these other tools within it, like email marketing or a social media manager or a course builder or whatever other thing, then you have this amazing flexibility to, at any point in your freelancing journey, be like, you know what, maybe I do want to launch a course, and maybe I don't want to pay like $120 a month for a Kajabi to do it. Maybe I would just like to test the waters. I'm going to build a course. I'm going to put it out there, see if anyone likes it. Maybe they won't. And maybe if I had, if I'm working with a tool like Fullscope, and that's great, I did not pay hundreds of dollars to try for several months to push a course out into the world that it turns out no one actually wanted, or I need to tweak it and change it. And, so having that flexibility to be creative, to try new things, and to not, tank your bank account in the process is for freelancers, who are already working on shoestring budgets a lot of the time. And, especially in the beginning, you're figuring out how things work. You're probably not drowning in clients and got like a $20,000 a month software budget or anything ridiculous. You have to be very careful about the decisions you make, and you have to be very careful about not overspending when you're not bringing in that much business. And so again, it's just that itch that I had to have a tool that could do all of that at a price that freelancers can actually afford is just kind of the driving factor behind the entire project.
The other thing that's good is when you have all of these things in there, you might prompt the freelancer to do something that they didn't consider. So for example, if there is a newsletter tool, then they might think of starting a newsletter, which when you just start freelancing, it's not on top of your mind. It's probably more about, okay, I need a website, I need a client. And the other thing I want to ask you, because when I do UX design, I'm usually entering the journey kind of halfway, midway, or maybe there's a redesign, something along those lines. But for me, I love the moment when I show the designs to the client, and depending what stage I'm showing them, if it's wireframes, they're going like, okay, but they don't really understand yet what it means, what the software is going to look like. So one of my favorite phases is the phase where I show them the UI, because then they have this moment of, oh, my product is coming to life. You actually see that the dream they've been working towards is happening, and this excitement, and then I get excited, everyone in the team gets excited. How is it for you when you go through this journey and you try to put all of these features in and everything, and you don't really know yet what this product is going to look like, how it's going to feel like, and then you see it evolve? How is this journey from a client perspective?
I guess it's always been exciting for me, even at the very beginning when I just had, my idea scratched on a piece of paper, just because I knew what the end goal was. And so I think, or maybe I'm not the best, not the best judge, because every step forward, even if it turns out to have been like maybe a little off the trail, or it turns out we got to backtrack on that one, I'm just super excited about, because I know the problems we're solving and who we're solving them for. So I'm an excitable person, I think.
Is there one specific thing that once you reach that milestone that you're incredibly proud of?
I think the milestone will just be more people on the platform, and more freelancers being able to do more for their business, again, for at a price that they can actually handle and deal with, and realizing is that we're a scrappy startup where we don't have the enormous marketing budgets of ClickFunnels or some of the other tools that we could be compared to. And so a lot of people come to us and then probably eyebrows raised, like, what is this thing? Does it really do all of this? And when I get people in demo calls or when they've been on the platform for a month or two. And like you mentioned, it does a lot. And so people, it's hard to communicate, individually, like what all is involved in a platform that does so much. But at the end of the day, when people write me and they're like, oh my God, I just realized I can do this as well. Like, holy shit. I can, number one, I can cancel that subscription that I have with this other tool because I don't need to pay for it anymore. That's awesome. Like, you're saving me money. Or, oh, wow, I can do this thing I've always wanted to try for my business, but I just never really could pull the trigger because it was too pricey, or I thought it would be too complicated. So getting to see those aha moments from customers is just the best part for me.
Nice. Are there any tips that you would give people who are in that situation where they're starting out, where maybe they haven't figured out the whole admin side of things, of freelancing, and they might be in the situation where they're not sure if freelancing is really right? What would you tell them?
Well, if that's the situation you're in, where you're kind of wondering, should I do this? Should I not? Hopefully that means like probably you have a job, or you're in a stable position in your life where you can consider this without it being like, oh, I need to go out and get a client right now because my rent is due type of situation. I think everyone should try, even if your biggest goal is just to like make $100 a month doing some like hobby type project that you enjoy. Just trying to run a business, no matter how small, is such a huge benefit. You learn so much about business, about people, about the psychology of how economics work, period, about money, about time management. I mean, even at the smallest scale, you kind of have to be a mini master of so many of these topics. And I think that has knockoff effects in your own life for sure. One of the stories that I most like to tell about a kind of like a business skill that translated to something in my personal life that I'm actually really excited about is when I first took that course I mentioned earlier from Brian Hood, and learned a bit about how to actually run a business. We talked in the course about batching tasks. And for anyone who's maybe not familiar with the idea, let's say if you want to do an email newsletter every week, you could every Monday, sit down and write a new email and send it out, or you could batch produce all of those emails like one day a month and then just schedule them to go out once a week. And when you batch things, you can just kind of, you're in that mindset of doing that one task for longer. You can be more efficient. And for some things, especially if it's something you don't really enjoy doing, like maybe it might be social media or something, you could just sit one day a month, do all of the social media posts for the whole month, and then just schedule them to post all month. And then you have the rest of the 29 days of the month to sit back and not really have to think about social media all day. So that can be a huge relief. But I moved batch processing from my business, which I never would have learned about had I not had a business, had I not been freelancing, into my personal life, because I realized, like, oh my gosh, I can apply this to my cooking and grocery shopping, because I love to cook, but I'm really scatterbrained when it comes to grocery shopping. And I don't really like going to the grocery store, especially because, I usually only had time to go after work, and that's when everyone's there. It's totally full. There's a long line. It takes forever. I inevitably forget something and realize it on the way home. And so I thought, oh man, like, how about I batch process my cooking? And so what I realized is I can, number one, I started ordering my groceries because I just thought, why go to the grocery store if I hate it? I'll just have my groceries delivered. And I made a spreadsheet that has like weekly meal plans, because I can spend 3, 4, or 5 hours in the kitchen cooking just to scarf it down in 5 minutes. And I'm totally happy. I love to cook, but all of the rest of the stuff around it, I hated. So by batching it, I could create a weekly meal plan. I have a list of all the ingredients I need. it's also, I realized by planning ahead of time, it's like, oh, you know what? I'll plan my weeks, the food I'm eating for the week around a specific like type of food or a country's food, so that any leftovers actually fit with the food that I'm eating the following day. So I'm not like eating a curry one day and then, I don't know, pasta bolognese the next day, but I have curry leftovers. But like, what do I do with this? I don't want to have curry bolognese. And that's been like a massive improvement on my life that I never would have thought about or known about had I not been running a business and learning how to run that business better by using batch processing. So now, like once a week, I have on my calendar, I sit down, I like choose, maybe it's going to be Thai food this week. I order all the ingredients. They come every week on a Tuesday. And then I have, my week planned out. It's like, okay, Tuesdays I cook a lot of food because Wednesdays I go to boxing in the evening, and Thursdays I cook again, and Friday I'm at the, doing something in the evening. So just planning it out just made my life massively easier. I don't have to be sitting around at the laptop at 7 p.m. and thinking, oh crap, do we have anything to eat tonight? Oh no, I have to run to the grocery store. Oh, what do we do? And just like when you're stressed, you make the worst decisions when it comes to food, and then you're not happy about any of it. So just moving all of that unnecessary overload on my brain into this nice little pretty batch processed packet that I have a plan, I execute the plan, it makes my life easier. The food we eat is better. I'm happier. My wife's happier. Life is a rainbow and sunshine and bird singing.
It sounds like a good thing, because you can, basically any decision you've made in the past for your future, you don't have to do again. So if you already decided this day I'm going to eat that day you don't have to think about it. You just do it and then move on with whatever else you have to do. And that makes life a lot easier. Thank you so much for taking the time today. I really enjoyed this and also learned more about how you actually started. Before we end this conversation, there are 3 questions that I ask all of my guests. And one of them is, would you ever go back to a permanent job?
Only if it was necessary for my family. I mean, I put my family first. So if I love freelancing, building businesses, but if it was at a point where my family was suffering from my attempts and I wasn't doing well enough to keep us afloat here, then I'd go back in a heartbeat. So priority number 1 is always going to be providing for my family. Luckily, I'm in a position where I can do both right now, but I always remember which is number 1 on my list.
Cool. And if you could go back in time, let's say to the person who was in Korea studying, not knowing that life will bring them to Germany or that university wasn't, looking back, the right idea, what would you today tell your past self?
Take this more seriously, man. I definitely, in my younger life, was just having fun, and I was, working on the things I wanted to work on, but I was also just kind of enjoying life, so to speak. And I think things could have turned out a little better for me had I kind of sat down and had that like one-on-one with myself in the mirror, like, actually, you need to hunker down and work a little more, and just like consider the repercussions of not taking things all too seriously, what that might mean 5 years, 10 years down the line. Like, let's enjoy our lives, but let's also let's not just be running around having fun, slinging electric guitar over my shoulder and running off to play some gig that doesn't pay crap just because they give us free beer and I'm having a good time.
Well, but those are nice moments too. I'm pretty sure you'll remember that and cherish them.
No doubt. There could have easily been a mix and I would have been just as happy, I think. So that's what I would say about that.
And if you think of your future self 10 years from now, wherever your business might be at that point, your kid would be in school, maybe you're still in Germany, maybe you're going to be somewhere else. What do you think your future self would tell you today?
Oof, that's a really good question. I mean, I know it's easy to answer the question about talking to yourself 10 years back, but I don't know, maybe I'm too too optimistic and feel like I'm doing things the way I should be doing them now. So it's hard to perceive what 10 years from now I might have said. I think I would probably say the opposite of the answer I just gave, which is maybe take things too seriously, because and that versus my younger self, I definitely now have more the tendency to work too much rather than too little. And to like my default mode is if I wake up like on a Saturday and we don't have plans, just like my laptop's open, I start working. And occasionally, like suddenly it's 3 p.m., 4 p.m. I'm like, oh wait, it's the weekend. Like I should be doing something nice and enjoying, especially like right now, the last months of freedom with my wife before the baby comes. So I'm the kind of person who can slip into the workaholic mode a little too easily. So I will say the opposite of advice, which is don't take things too seriously. So evidently I'm all over the spectrum.
Well, it's always about finding the balance. Well, thank you so much for your time today. If the listeners want to learn more about you, where can they find you?
They can find me personally on LinkedIn. And otherwise, they can learn more about the platform at fullscopefreelancer.com. I'm sure you're going to have a link. Thanks again for sharing. And if they have any questions, our contact info is there. Things come through my email inbox. You can book calls with me on the website. So unlike bigger software companies, like you can really personally talk to me anytime. So we try to have, especially while we're still starting, while we're still a little smaller, like this is a great time to have one-on-one contact with the people who are actually providing your products and services, rather than, if it grew and scaled beyond our wildest dreams. I hope that won't disappear necessarily, but of course it gets harder at a certain size to be personally involved with all your customers and actually be able to talk to them one-on-one. So if that's the type of service you'd like to have, instead of maybe the nameless chatbot trying to solve your problems, but the AI hasn't been tuned in quite yet as to how to understand you, then come on by. I'm happy to talk to anyone, anytime, about freelancing in general, about products, services, goals, dreams, whatever you've got for me. Bring it on in.
Nice. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to talk to you. And yeah, thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks for having me.
I really enjoyed this conversation with Ben. I'm adding the link to his LinkedIn and Full Scope Freelancer into the description of this podcast. If you're looking for a platform to manage your freelance business, you can try Full Scope Freelancer for free. And with the link in the description, you get a longer trial period. So if you're looking for a tool that combines Calendly, MailChimp, and even allows you to host a course and so much more, go check it out. If you enjoyed this podcast, I would love for you to leave a review and hit the follow button. That's all from me, and I can't wait to have you join again next week. Bye.